Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Rogue One. And I overall really enjoyed this movie. I really like Star Wars, and this did a really good job of kind of bridging the prequels and the original trilogy, in fact leading directly into A New Hope at the end of it. And it did an excellent job of showing the rebellion versus the Empire and giving us a more kind of dirty, gritty feel for what was going on. Also, like the factions in the Rebel Alliance and how, even though they're the good guys, they sometimes do bad things as well. So, giving us a kind of more nuanced kind of feel for the whole conflict. And the way this opened up, it didn't open up with the opening crawl or anything, because this is a kind of side story. This is to add to the narrative of Star Wars, and is different than the main episodes that we get through the main story. And I kind of really like that. It starts off in the action, and we get to see these Imperials come to this planet. We see this family kind of freaking out that they're coming, the mother and the daughter being sent away by the father. And they're nice kind of little touches. It's different than Tatooine, but it's still got those kind of farmer aesthetics with how everything's done, how he's even trying to farm stuff, the blue milk and all that. And he goes out to meet them, and come to find out that this is Galen Erso, and he was trying to be brought back in by Krennic, who is the director of like advanced weapons research for the Empire, wants him back to help him complete the Death Star. And he's trying to tell him no, 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 and everything, and that he's doesn't want to do all that. He's forgotten stuff and pretty much trying to sacrifice himself for his family. Well, the daughter is kind of staying back while the mother tries to return and kind of stop Krennic. And of course, he orders his stormtroopers, which have great designs, by the way. Lots of different stormtroopers in this movie, and they are actually kind of different than your regular stormtroopers. These are like, granted, you'd usually say that most of them are supposed to be elite. These are like elite of the elite, the black and everything. They don't screw around. And so they take her out and take Galen away while Jyn, the daughter, goes off and hides and waits for their one friend, Saw, to get her and lead her away. And that's kind of a nice setup, and then we get into later, 15 years later, and we're seeing that Jyn is in this Imperial prison because she really doesn't like the Empire, if you can tell, because of what they've done to her family, and she just kind of generally just doesn't give a crap about them, and just wants to do everything to kind of like screw with them, kind of. We don't get complete amounts of what was going on with that, but I think that what we've been seeing from her so far is she'll hit them when she can, but she'll just kind of stay low to the ground anyway, to kind of keep off of their radar. And that's why she's kind of in that Imperial prison to begin with, because she did one thing too many, and the Empire's like, nah. So then we get introduced to Cassian Andor, and he is a very interesting character, because at first I really didn't like him. I mean, granted, he's with the Rebel Alliance, but he's getting information about this new super weapon that can destroy planets. And, of course, stormtroopers come by on this space station, and he kills one, and his informant can't get out, so he kills him as well, so that way he has a chance to escape and doesn't let them have the opportunity to gain information from him. It's like, wow, this is a pretty dark Rebel Alliance operative. Granted, espionage is a dark thing, but he had no qualms about taking him out. He didn't look for another way to try and get him out beforehand, so he just escapes with this information. And so he brings it to the Rebel Alliance, and they're like, we need Saul. We need to get him on our side to figure out how to get him back into the fold, because this is a big thing. Even though Saul is on the extreme end of the Rebel Alliance, they're going to need his help to deal with this super weapon. So that leads Cassian and their droid K2SO, who is a really good addition to the droids. He's just like sass all the way, doesn't give a crap. Reprogrammed Imperial droid. They bust Jyn out, and they're like, all right, you've got this bond with Saw. He'll listen to you, and we'll see what's going on. And while this is going on, we learned that an Imperial pilot, Bodhi Rook, has defected from the Empire with a message from Galen Erso. And it's kind of a race to see who can get to him first, because that's pretty important, because Galen's been working on the Death Star all these long years. So we kind of get to this meeting place at Jedha, and we've got Jyn and Cassian and Kay, and they just go into the town of Jedha because they're seeing that, trying to get a feel to find out if they can find any way to get to Saw, while also seeing that it's under Imperial control as they're trying to take the Kyber crystals, which are used for lightsabers for the Jedi to power the Death Star. And then that's where it kind of gets interesting and snowballing with kind of more people into effect. We see Chirrut and his buddy Baze, and of course Chirrut is kind of this spiritual. He is not a Force user, but he is deeply religious about the Force, chanting the lines and kind of his own mantra, and even though he's blind, he kicks so much ass. It's great. And of course, there's his buddy Baze over there to get him support and everything, so they're kind of like looking around, and of course they get in there at a good and bad time, because Saw's rebels pretty much hit the Imperials at that point, but you can tell the kind of difference. They're going for maximum carnage. They don't care who's caught in the crossfire, which you get to see the kind of differences that are bleeding into Jyn, because she tries to help this child who's pretty much going to get killed in the crossfire, and gives the child back to their mother, and they're actively kind of fighting both sides, because granted they don't like the Imperials, but Saw's forces are trying to kill them as well, and not intentionally, but they gotta stop like these dudes throwing thermal detonators and explosives and everything, because they're hitting this tank hard. So the fight stops at that kind of moment, and that pretty much most of the Imperials have to go and get reinforcements, as we see with like ATSTs and all that, and they're trying to build back up. So Jyn and them have to like get through everything that's going on in the city as they eventually get captured by Saw's forces and taken to his compound. Now, while this was going on, we see that Saw's talking to Bodhi and using this creature to tell if he's telling the truth. And it just shows how paranoid Saw is. He will continue to fight the Empire no matter what the cost. We see that he is kind of similar to Vader in a way, in that he is made up of more mechanical things than organic. And he is given not just his life, but pieces of him to fight this Empire, and he won't stop. So he's trying to make sure that he's got good information from Bodhi and what that means being a defector for the Empire. So pretty much everybody but Jyn's put into a cell that they're able to be conveniently next to Bodhi, while Jyn's talking to Saw, and they find out that it's a holographic message from Galen talking about how he has hated being away from Jyn for so long, but that he went there because he knew they couldn't complete it without him, but that he'd be able to get his own revenge, and that he has built an inherent weakness into the Death Star. And I really like this, in that it shows that there's a lot of different ways for people to fight. For one person, it is staying outside and doing hit-and-run tactics. For another, it's going inside and working from the inside to do good. And it's something that's not really shown that much, and it kind of adds another layer to the story as well, because Cassian has orders to, if they do find Galen, to kill him. And, of course, that's par on course work for him, but it's like, this is Jyn's father. How will she react to that? So, they get that she gets that message in her head, and that's when the Empire strikes at Jedha with the Death Star, and our friends are able to escape with the defector and kind of get out. What this was the end for Saw and most of his forces, as the planet itself wasn't blown up. This was more tactical strikes with the Death Star, not at full power, but it was good enough as a demonstration to show Tarkin, who they did a great job of bringing him back with the CGI and all that, and it's just like, holy crap. And seeing Krennic kind of be like, yes, I need to be, and he's kind of ticked off if that Tarkin's kind of trying to take control away from him. But once they start figuring out that the defector has left, and he's like, I gotta go and check this out. So they go to Eadu, the place where Galen's been working on it and everything to confirm what's going on, and that's when our rebel friends get there as well. Cassian getting in position to assassinate Galen, and Jyn trying to get up there to rescue her father. And of course, Krennic plays his games with Galen, getting ready to kill all the engineers, but Galen steps up and says, it was me that sent the message with the pilot, don't hurt them, and then of course he kills them, and we see that Cassian decides not to assassinate Galen, which is a cool kind of character turn for him, because everybody's kind of like getting in position and all that, and of course a rebel strike force is coming to blow up the secret Imperial research facility, and they get there and kill Galen. Now granted, it's kind of more like friendly fire, but yet that was their main goal anyway. And of course, Jyn and Cassian kind of have a thing, but he's like, I didn't do it. I had every chance and I didn't do it. I tried to call it off. I tried to stop it. When we couldn't do it. And then that sets up them taking an Imperial shuttle and trying to figure out where to get the plans for the Death Star. And of course, they got that from Galen and the research that they did, that they'd have to go to Scarif and get the plans that way, because otherwise they're going to have trouble trying to defeat the Death Star. They need to figure out where it's at, because that's what Jyn and Galen kind of had their moment, and they kind of get their way set on there. So they, of course, go back to Rebel headquarters on Yavin 4, and, of course, they're all bickering. And, I mean, like, what about, we don't have a hope to do this. And Jyn's explaining to them, that's what rebellions are built on. Hope that we can make things better. And, of course, she's got the people rallied behind her, but all the different heads are like, we're not going to war. Not against a super weapon. We're going to have to disband and kind of go back to what we were doing before, and possibly maybe be able to come back later, since this is getting a little bit too hot. But of course, Cassian gets fellow saboteurs together and be like, we've done horrible things. If we can do this, we can do a little bit good. This is what we have been fighting for. Otherwise, all those bad things that we've done have been in vain. And it was a real kind of cool moment, and seeing them kind of get together and get the ship, the Imperial shuttle that they stole, and have the moniker of Rogue One, and they just blast off on their own to do it. And they all pretty much know that this is a suicide mission. So they don't have any qualms that what's going on. May the Force be with them. We got to go in and get this done. So they get the Scarif. They're able to get through the shield and all that, and it starts a really good tactical battle of trying to get the plans. And all of the pieces that were together were really well done. And using the AT-ATs that they had, it was pretty scary, because this is a small guerrilla force in an Imperial compound, and the way they were deployed was like, holy shit, they don't have the weapons to deal with this. Of course, once people start figuring out that a strike force is left and is fighting at this planet, then we get the rebel fleet coming in, and that just enters a whole other battle with like the space forces going on at the same time. So they're like, we need to back these people up, and we need to get everything done. So they send in a squadron in before the shield gets closed, and they start providing air support, and it's just like back and forth, guerrilla tactics, seeing all the cool fighting, while also seeing Jyn and Cassian and K2SO go in and sneak and infiltrate into the compound. And they're pretty much trying to get the Death Star plans, and they're getting to these data terminals and all that, trying to figure out how to get all the stormtroopers out, and just all the way we got to see cool character moments shine, of like K2SO getting a blaster from Jyn to hold off the stormtroopers that were going to come into the vault, seeing Jyn and Cassian work together to get the plans up to the communication relay to beam them off to the rebel forces, to seeing Chirrut and Baze hold off as they're trying to do the switch, while Chirrut's able to flip the switch for the communications so Bodhi can send up the Death Star plans. It just was really well done, and you can feel for those characters, and seeing it so well executed, and all these kind of callbacks, the jungle kind of AT-ATs, but yet they were still being taken out by these cool rebel forces going in, doing what they do best. And seeing the rebel forces in space use these cool tactics to take out 2 Star Destroyers, to take out the shield generators, to have the plans beamed up. It was just great. And then, of course, we see each character eventually enter their demise, as like Bodhi's blown up by a thermal detonator, Chirrut's pretty much blown up by Death Troopers, Baze is blown up by Death Troopers, but granted, that's the workings of it. K2SO taken out by all the stormtroopers, Cassian wounded, Jyn sending off the Death Star plans, and Krennic getting shot, and pretty much getting destroyed when the Death Star comes and blows up the compromised data station on Scarif. And that's the end of Cassian and Jyn as well. And Krennic, because it took off the top of the place and then made this giant explosion. And it was just really well done. And then we get to see the really kind of cool stuff. They did a lot of other stuff with Vader in here, because Krennic did have to go and kind of talk with Vader to see what's going on, and that was pretty cool. And entering some interesting stuff for Vader. We go to one of his castles, because that's been alluded to in expanded universe stuff. He's on this volcanic world, of course, that would have memories of pain and anger. So that's why it was really cool to kind of see it. They didn't expressly state it was Mustafar, but I think it would be a very Mustafarian-like planet, and that would be a kind of draw for Vader, for the dark side, so that way he can meditate, because we see him in a Bacta tank, kind of meditating and then putting on his Vader armor and all that, and being very menacing to Krennic, and using his force choke on him and the lines that he does. And then we see him just come in to take care of the rebel fleet, as we see the ship from A New Hope speed off right before he's able to get the plans. And that was very horror movie-esque when we see Vader in the main ship of the rebel fleet before the ship departs from it. He just is in that corridor with that lightsaber, and then just starts, we see a Vader that is full force in his prime. Just using the force, just very methodical, very strong saber style, very different from the Anakin Skywalker that we'd seen in the prequels. And it was just amazingly well done. And seeing him do that, it's like, that's why all those people were scared in A New Hope. It's like, oh yeah. I mean, it's one thing to see the character and be like, you can feel a menace. And then seeing the acts behind that menace were just amazing. And we, of course, get to see very well done CGI Carrie Fisher kind of explaining and putting us into the setup for A New Hope. And I just overall think it was very well done, showing how there's different factions and everything within the Rebel Alliance, but then you see these core people come together and really exemplify what the rebellion's about. It's not just about doing damage and not trusting people and trying to get your way by doing the same things that your enemy's been doing. It's understanding that a few group of people with the right will and the right trust in each other can just do an objective to help the rest of the universe. Because they didn't have any thoughts about their safety. They're like, this is probably a suicide mission. But if we do this, we can help the Rebel Alliance win against the Empire. And then That also helps explain, oh, because everybody's like, it's this Death Star, it's this super weapon, and it's got this tiny flaw. And now we have a better explanation for why it has this flaw. Because it was intentionally built in to make it weak, to make it vulnerable, to make it be destroyed. That's pretty cool. And adding that emotional weight that this man has been working on this thing to make sure that it can be destroyed. That's powerful. Because this isn't just one person's contribution to the Rebel Alliance. This is the man working on it for 15 years. His daughter, the allies that she had brought with her and changed their minds about how to work together and what goals to achieve. It was just kind of cool to see that. And kind of seeing everybody kind of make up their minds and be like, it's the will of the Force for some people. For others, it's just believing that we have to make sure that all the bad we've done is for something. And that we can get hope and bring the universe back to a kind of stability out of this rule of tyranny and hatred from the Sith and the Empire. And I just overall thought it was well done and that it really dug deep and gave a better understanding of the mythos of Star Wars and really understood what Star Wars needed to be about. Now, granted, my only really issues was that it felt like it kind of was jumpy in the beginning, but I understand that it needed to be accomplished in order to get to the points that we needed to get to, so that way it kind of flowed a little bit better. But other than that, I think that this proves that Disney knows what they're doing with Star Wars, and that we should be good with any kind of side stories and like a Star Wars stories that they do from now on, like with the Han Solo, anything with like Yoda or Boba Fett or Obi-Wan or any kind of side things. If they wanted to do a kind of Magnificent Seven Samurai kind of thing with either Jedi in the past or Jedi in the future or anything like that. Those kind of stories, or Mandalorians, mercenaries. It opens up a lot of stuff to be accomplished. This was a nice, good test for doing something that needed to be done to kind of make everything a little bit more cohesive and give more background for Star Wars. And that really makes me excited for where they're going to be going next. So, those are my thoughts on Rogue One. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.